Welcome. I'm Donna Peterson, co-chair of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of the Piedmont Triad. I'd like to welcome everyone to the League's City of Greensboro Mayoral Candidate Forum. I'd like you to welcome our candidates this evening and thank you all for participating. Also, thank you to all of our audience members for joining us this evening. Just a reminder that this is a forum, not a debate. Our moderator will go into the format for tonight's program after her introduction. Questions were submitted in advance and reviewed. Thank you all for submitting these in advance. Each candidate will be given equal time to present themselves and answer questions. While questions for the candidates have been pre-selected, attendees may submit questions by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of their screens. We will ask the candidates to answer as many questions as we have time for. Allow me to clarify a couple of things about the Zoom webinar platform. Except for the timekeeper, moderator, and our candidates, everyone is muted and you are not on screen nor being recorded. We will ask the candidates to address as many questions as possible. The chat feature is disabled. The forum will be recorded and the replay will be available on lwvpt.org and the LWVPT YouTube channel by June 21st, 2022 at 7:00 p.m. Also for our viewers, vote411.org is the League's nonpartisan election website where you can go to find all the latest information about voting, your polling place, and most importantly, the ability to compare candidate profiles. Plug in your address and you can see all about your local races. Thanks to our Voter Services Committee for the hard work in reaching out to all our candidates to make sure they are represented. We always work to achieve 100% participation. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Elma Hairston. Elma is a small business owner, consultant, and best-selling author, known for her key insights for business and personal growth, dedicated to maximizing potential, politics, and community. Please welcome Elma Hairston. Elma, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Good
Start
evening.
over.
I will. Good evening. My name is Elma Hairston, and I welcome each of you this evening. And we thank you for being with us, spending this evening with us. Allow me to introduce our candidates. Mayor Nancy Vaughan, Mayor Vaughan. Councilman Justin Outling, Councilman Outling. And allow me to go over the rules. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for opening remarks. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. I will state the question once, except at your request. Please limit your responses to your own ideas and your own campaign. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for closing remarks. Each candidate agrees to the public view of the forum by participating in the forum. Each candidate agrees to participate in the candidate forum as stated in the letter of invitation. All candidate remarks will be timed to ensure equal opportunity to speak. Our timer will have a timer on screen that will let you see how much time is left and when your time is over. Please stop promptly when your time is up. I will rotate the order of the questions so that each candidate has an opportunity to go first. And now we'll start with your opening remarks. The moment we see the blue timer, blue sky timer. I'm going to pause for just a moment so that we can get the timer in view on camera.
I apologize. For some reason, I had to invite it again and it's still not showing. And I cannot, hang on just a second. It's not letting me show it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say it out loud. I'm gonna say 30 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay, will that work for you? And
Yes.
again, I apologize.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Always technology. What can you say? This always happens with technology, and we will continue. Jane, are you ready to start with the opening remarks?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Mayor Vaughan?
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here. I was saying earlier that always one of the best held forums and where most people are is the League of Women Voters. We miss having it at Holy Trinity Church downtown, but I'm so glad that you were able to do this virtually. You know, I am running for my my 4th term as mayor. I've been mayor for a little over 8 years. And I want people to think about really everything that has happened these last 4 years. We have been through some unprecedented times, and it started right with a tornado right through East Greensboro. We had a tragic fire that resulted in the deaths of 5 children. We've had the pandemic. We've had an economic slowdown due to the pandemic. We've had to speed up now that now that things are loosening up a little bit. We've had civil unrest in downtown. You know, we were one of the first cities to really step out and do a stay-at-home order, to do a masking order. These last 4 years, there have been a number of significant challenges, and I'm happy to say that I was able to lead the city in a calm, strong manner. We've also had some really good news. As we all know, we've had Publix, Toyota, and Boom, the expansion of Procter & Gamble, Syngenta, the Fresh Market, a number of others. And those are all important things. Tanger opened, which was one of our biggest economic development announcements in a very long time. So even though we've had these challenges in front of us, we've also had a number of successes. And I have been very pleased to lead the city during this very turbulent time. And
30 seconds.
I know that there are plans in place, plans that I have helped develop to continue moving us forward. Thank you.
Councilman Outling?
Well, good evening. It is a real pleasure to be here with the League, and thanks to all for organizing this wonderful forum. It reminds me of all the great work the League has done, in particular on voter registration. I recall, I believe it was last summer, Barbara Carter, an event to commemorate the life of Yvette Bailey, in the height and heat of the day, registering voters and sharing information about how to protect our community during the COVID pandemic. So it's an honor to be here today. My name is Justin Outling. I'm a Greensboro City Council person representing District 3, and I'm a candidate for mayor. Greensboro's at the foundation of who I am in every significant way. I met my love of my life, Cora, our freshman year at UNC Greensboro. Our children, Clark and Clara, attend elementary school at Jones Elementary in the Warnersville neighborhood. In addition to serving as a council person for the past 7 years in District 3, I practice law at the Brooks Pierce Law Firm, which is one of the great law firms in our community and in the state. And so as someone who really deeply appreciates Greensboro and has been molded by Greensboro, I know that Greensboro should be the envy of every single city in the state of North Carolina. With our high quality of life, our low cost of living, some of the best colleges and universities in the entire state, infrastructure that allows you to go from one end to another in less than 20 minutes. But the reality is that Greensboro is not meeting its potential, and the gap between its potential is getting
30.
wider and wider year after year. Whether it's what all of us have read recently in terms of even when other mid-sized cities are booming, Greensboro's population growing 0.1% compared to nearly 7 times as much in Durham, or it's our losing Fortune 500 company headquarters in VF or so on. So I look forward to discussing with you all further on how we can actually move our community forward to close the gap between our potential and reality.
All right, now we are going to start with our questions. The first question, Affordable safe housing is a significant problem in Greensboro. Many have identified the problem, but few have provided solutions. What are one or two specific policies that are not currently in place that you will lead the city to adopt to increase the number of affordable housing units in Greensboro? And how would you pay for these? I'm going to start with Mayor Vaughan first on this one.
Thank you. I appreciate the question, and I know how important safe, affordable housing is. We had done a housing study and it was updated for post-COVID numbers. It's a 10-year housing plan, and we will have an affordable housing bond on our referendum on July 26th. That is one of the most important bonds that we have. I championed the first affordable housing bond that we had back in 2016. That has led to over 1,100 affordable units here in our community, but I know that we need to do better than that. So this $30 million bond will help us implement our 10-year housing plan. Some of the facts with the affordable housing plan is that it will help us subsidize housing for people making 30 to 60% AMI. And that is so important because we do have a large community of working poor and everybody deserves safe, affordable housing. We will do more with down payment assistance. That is one of the most successful parts of the last housing bond. We had something called 100 homes. It was to convert 100 renters into first-time home buyers. It was so successful that it did over 900 families. That was a huge quality of life difference for them. I propose that we increase that down payment assistance from $10,000 to $15,000. We all see what's happened with the, I see we're getting a little low tech, but that's okay. With our real estate market, that we need a higher down payment amount. And we also need to raise the income that people can make so that people like our teachers, our city workers, police and fire can afford to live within the city. Those are just a few of the things. And I look forward to going into further depth as these questions come up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilman Outling?
We are and have been in for a long time in a crisis state with regard to affordable housing. Even before the COVID pandemic and explosive cost of housing in Greensboro, we had over a third of our community paying over a third of their household income on housing. In other words, they could not possibly make ends meet and provide for their families. To your wonderful question, there are things that we can do at the structural level to make housing more affordable. One policy that I am a proponent of and I have proposed is to adopt an ordinance that requires property owners who own lots of rental properties to accept rental security deposit insurance in addition to rental security deposits. That way, a tenant can purchase insurance for a fraction of the cost of a typical down deposit, making that exponentially more affordable for the renter at no cost to the city. This is something that's been successfully implemented by communities like Cleveland, Atlanta. This is something that we should certainly do here. Another thing that we should do is actually have a policy of, in fact, following through on our words and holding slumlords accountable. And in that regard, I have not only talked about it, but actually had action to back it up when our city, including the incumbent mayor, regretfully agreed to settle a case with the Agapian family for pennies on the dollar flowing from their keeping properties in substandard condition, including a property to which several children died in a fire several years ago. Moreover, it's not just about the bonds. Bonds are ways in which you pay for projects. It's about actually prioritizing those funds on particular projects and great initiatives like making repairs directly to property to get otherwise blighted property out of our communities and back on the housing stock.
Thank you, Councilman Outling. Question number two, and before I go to question number two, I'd like to stay focused on your own campaign and your own ideas as it relates to one of the rules that I mentioned earlier. Question number two, One of the goals of Greensboro's strategic plan is to retain local college graduates. What is your plan to motivate our local college graduates to select Greensboro as the place where they live, work, and raise a family? Councilman Outling first.
Yeah, the city relatively recently adopted a new comprehensive plan charting a long-term vision for our community. I was honored to lead the community group that really led the creation of that plan, which has received awards from across the country. Now is the hard work of actually bringing that plan to life and giving it effect for the benefit of everyone, including younger professionals and others who want to live in Greensboro. One thing we should do to entice and encourage those persons to stay in our community is to create an innovation district or corridor going from North Carolina A&T through downtown, including the Nussbaum Center. This would take advantage of the unique asset in North Carolina A&T and be a magnet for new jobs, as well as supporting those who are creating jobs in our community, including through the Nussbaum Center. Other communities who have actually utilized their unique assets have done this with great effect, whether it be Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where their innovation district has about 10% of their local population and 30% of the jobs, or even more closely here in North Carolina in Winston-Salem. But it's important that we actually take the steps, take the action, and not simply talk about year after year the constant brain drain that Greensboro experiences. But that's certainly one terrific idea that I'm supporting and helping to lead on.
Thank you. Mayor Vaughan.
Thank you, Alma. Just a quick point, the city is actively working on an innovation corridor. We're working with businesses and the colleges to see that come through downtown and Gate City Boulevard. I have a daughter who was 21 and she is away at college, and I want her to come back. So not only do I want to retain existing students, I want to make sure that the children who grew up here know that Greensboro is a great place to live, work, and play. We have been offering through Campus Greensboro high-touch internships, which are so important. It builds a mentorship between a student in Guilford County, a college student, along with an employer. These internships aren't just making coffee and making copies, but it's actually learning about the business. And many of those students actually end up with employment after these internships. I would like to see that expanded. When I speak to local business owners, they say that one of the biggest things that they hear is that people want to make sure that that second job is lined up. So while they may come and find a job here in the city of Greensboro, what do we have to continue to offer down the road? And that is why it is so important, the work that I do with our local business community, to make sure that they have what they need in order to provide that second job. Amenities are very important, that people want to know that when they live here in the city of Greensboro, especially when they're young, that there are fun, great places for them to do. We've got the ballpark downtown. We just opened Tanger Center. We opened a zip line at the Natural Science Center. They had the Great Revolution Ridge and ropes courses. It's making sure that people realize, as Mr. Outling said earlier, we have a great quality of life.
Thank you so much. Question number 3. According to the North Carolina Economic Outlook on Workforce Development, we will face a workforce shortage in 2030. What is your plan to ensure that Greensboro can meet the diversity, equity, and inclusion challenge as we fully integrate our immigrant community and all who seek to become engaged in this emerging economy? We'll start with Mayor Vaughan.
Thank you, Elma. We know how important it is that we have full employment. And we have a great workforce development department, one that I helped reshape a few years ago. They have a program called Next Gen. It's an office that is opening up in downtown because we know that young people and the transportation is in downtown, focusing on the 16 to 24-year-olds. The police chief started a 500 jobs initiative. We know that we've got to do better reaching out into neighborhoods, which is one reason why our workforce development has a mobile unit where they can go out into neighborhoods and help people with applying for jobs and resumes. We are working with GTCC on their $500, their last dollar initiative, where our students can go to GTCC and it will only cost them $500. We're working with our employers to see what skills it is to make sure that people will qualify for really well-paying jobs above the livable wage. And by doing that, we are skilling and upskilling our residents to make sure that they can meet the needs that are coming into the city of Greensboro. Right now, you're right. It will be a workforce challenge, but we have a ready and willing population here. They want these jobs that are coming in, and that is one reason why we worked so hard, is to make sure that we would get larger jobs, but we're also focusing on small businesses because we know that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. So working with people like the Chamber of Commerce, we're encouraging people to open their own businesses and to support them the best way that we can in order for them to be successful.
Thank you. Councilman Outling?
Yes, Alma. Greensboro is a city of tremendous potential and tremendous promise. And that includes with regard to jobs and economic development. But as was said, we must do a lot better, and we must act with a sense of urgency that we haven't seen to date. Greensboro's per capita income, the money that households have to make their households run and meet bills, was once close to that of Raleigh and Charlotte. Now we're way, way behind. And now as inflation outpaces wages in our community, most members of our community are really feeling the squeeze. And all of those good intentions have not changed the way that our community looks, especially in the eastern side of Greensboro. We have to be really honest about the vision that's required to move our community forward in this particular regard. Things that we should do are actually focus on, as a city, local small businesses, taking even greater steps than those I led the city council in taking, giving a preference to local small businesses in certain city contracts. We need to expand those programs and focus city government on cutting red tape and supporting local small businesses, while charging the Chamber of Commerce with going after those really larger employers where they have a special expertise. It also includes the city having to actually focus its resources on making sure that the structure that supports more jobs are here. That includes recognizing that most of the positive economic development announcement that we've heard, Toyota in Randolph County, Boom out at the airport, are outside of the city of Greensboro. So we need to make sure that we have reliable bus routes and public transportation to take our community members to those jobs outside of the city. Those actions haven't occurred to date. They need to occur, and they will occur with change.
Thank you. And that leads us to our next question. Considering the proposed $15 million bond proceeds and the funds from the Biden infrastructure bill earmarked for transportation, how would you reimagine the transportation system for Greensboro to make it efficient, affordable, and accessible to all corridors from the airport to the mega site and beyond? Councilman Outling.
Thank you, Alma. These are things that we can do in our community, just as other successful communities have done. We need to start at actually prioritizing public transportation. As I said, for these recent job announcements to be great successes for Greensboro, and again, they're outside of the city now, it requires by definition that we have reliable public transportation out to those sites. That includes creating rapid bus transit routes, something that we don't have, that can quickly take workers out from the city of Greensboro to Randolph County or at the mega site. Actually taking the steps necessary to do that. It also includes the city council providing more direction and leadership to the city manager, which is a real contrast to what's happened to date, for example, with the American Rescue Plan, where the manager was not given specific direction in terms of priorities for city council. And in staff's initial recommendations, it includes $0 for public transportation, but money for organizations who are relatively well connected to do things like repair windows. So we can create a transportation system that's efficient, that is affordable. And I look forward to working on behalf of our community, not just as a council member, but as a mayor in that connection. My father, Amos, is a recently retired bus driver in Charlotte. It's been a centerpiece of Charlotte's success. It'll be a centerpiece of our success to the extent that we get there and actually take action and fulfill our potential in that regard.
Thank you. Mayor Vaughan?
Thank you, Alma. Obviously, when we were negotiating with Boom and Toyota and Publix, one of the concerns they had was transportation and how can we get people to the jobs. Obviously, that's something we've been working on because we were able to secure those job announcements. It will be easy to shuttle people back and forth, whether it is from a traditional park and ride or from the depot downtown. But those plans are already in place. We are looking at doing crosstown routes. Right now we have a hub and a spoke. Everybody has to come into the depot. You know, I went on the bus a few times in the last few months when the school system reached out to us and said they needed help with mass transit. I wanted to see how easy it would be if I were a student. And certainly having that firsthand experience looking at sidewalks and shelters that we need, which we will finance out of ARP. I think it's important that we come up with mini hubs instead of just having the hub in the center of town. To get those crosstown routes, we're going to have to put smaller hubs where people live. We know where people are going to work. I think that transportation is economic development. We talk about what we can do to lower crime rates and have people be more successful in school. It is to give them a good, well-paying job. And part of that is to make sure that they can get to that job on a timely basis and they're not spending hours on the bus. These are plans that already are in place that we're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Small businesses remain an integral part of the Greensboro economy, and the effects of COVID have had a significant impact. How would you ensure that small businesses remain a viable and relevant part of the Greensboro economy? And what assistance will you make available to sustain small businesses through challenging times? Mayor Vaughan.
Thank you. I was pleased a few years back to be involved with eBay and their retail revival. And what we did was we were actually chosen as a city. It was their third city. And we brought in, with the help of people like Triad Local First and Launch Lab and others, we brought them together so that they would be able to use eBay's resources and help build capacity. We've seen how that works. Just last week, one of our local small businesses was featured on QVC, and she worked with the Retail Revival and with downtown, with Greensboro Chambers Launch Lab. We need to create more incubators like the Nussbaum Center, where it really helps people get their feet on the ground. You are right, small business is so important in our community. So it's making sure that we have the things that they need to be successful, which means that people who are going to work with them that earn a decent living, that there is enough affordable housing, that we do have the innovation corridor. There are so many things that the city of Greensboro is doing right now. I've been involved in an initiative called Equity for Every Entrepreneur. And it is how can we as a county, not just the city, but work with the county and the region to make sure that our startup entrepreneurs, our Black and brown people, have the same chances of being successful as white counterparts do. Through history, we've seen that that doesn't happen. But through the work we're doing with Equity for Every Entrepreneur, we know that we can move that forward. We can move it forward with the Nussbaum Center and other great programs that we have in place. Thank you.
Councilman Outling.
Thank you. It's important to kind of really listen to the responses closely. For example, understanding that looking at means that we in fact do not currently have a plan. We can make progress in supporting our small businesses during challenging times, especially like these, and well beyond. That includes doing things like supporting them and creating resources for them akin to the resources that we have within the city of Greensboro for really large businesses. By way of example, if you're working on a really large project, for example, to construct a big new commercial building, the city has an ombudsman that helps you cut through red tape so that you can do business more efficiently. Those are the types of things that we should have also for our small businesses, with the city, again, focusing on small business and creating an environment in which all businesses, but especially small businesses, can be successful. It also includes us taking steps in building upon one of the real successes of the past several years in my working with others on the council to create a local preference policy, which gives local small businesses an opportunity to match certain lowest bids on city contracts, keeping those dollars in our community where it helps grow our community as opposed to communities elsewhere. It also, however, includes the city council and the mayor having discipline and focus. That means not providing resources based on their connectivity to City Hall. By way of example, it means voting against, as I did, providing $80,000 to a bar downtown during the middle of a pandemic, the middle of a racial awakening, simply because that organization was well connected, that organization being Bourbon Bowl, violating the city's policies and more.
Thank you. Now we will check with Donna, and if you will take a look at our Q&A, if we have one of the questions from our Q&A, we're ready for that one.
Elma, there are no questions from the audience right now, so I think we can go forth with the ones that we've already chosen.
Well, we must be just rolling along and doing quite well. We did spend a great deal of time and diligence and thought in putting the questions together, so that's a good thing. Next, we have food deserts are a concern as food insecurity persists. What are one or two ways that you would increase accessibility to healthy food for all Greensboro communities? Councilman Outling.
My wife, Cora, and I, as I mentioned, we met our freshman year at UNC Greensboro, and there was a period of time when neither of us had a vehicle, so we rode Greensboro public transportation, the buses. It took us literally 2 hours to make a trip to and from the campus, UNC Greensboro, to Walmart. A major way in which we can help increase accessibility for families all across Greensboro who live in food deserts and elsewhere is to improve our public transportation system, creating more routes, but also more frequent routes. That means dedicating more funds in the city's budget, as well as through the American Rescue Plan, so that our budget reflects that priority and we're not wasting money, your hard-earned resources that you entrust to the city, giving it to well-connected developers downtown, giving it to organizations who happen to be well-connected, but what they're seeking to do with the money doesn't move our community forward in ways like transportation. So that's one thing that we can certainly do that would help with regard to food deserts. Another thing that we can do is also incentivize grocers to be within the city of Greensboro in food deserts, but also, just as importantly, explaining to them that our community, including in food deserts, are places where they can not only make money and be successful, but we will support them in those endeavors. That includes doing creative things like providing guarantees to grocers such that we guarantee that they're going to see returns on their investments, and we will underwrite and back up if in the unfortunate event they do not. We have to kind of break out of the mold of thinking of these things as simply handing over money. But we can do that with greater investments in transportation, with creative solutions, including guaranteeing returns of grocers who are willing to locate within food deserts.
Thank you. Mayor Vaughan?
Thank you for that question. When I was first elected mayor, the city of Greensboro was #1 in food insecurity. Over the years, we have made progress. We're down to number 14. That's not good. I'm not bragging about it. We've got to back off from that, but that does show measurable progress. And when we look at food insecurity, it's not just the city of Greensboro. It is actually our MSA, which includes Guilford County, Randolph County, and Rockingham County. So working with them is how we get down our ranking. But what we can do to help the people of the city of Greensboro is really make sure that transportation is easy. But we have partnered with a number of our nonprofits that deal in food distribution. There is ample food within the city. We just need to make sure that it gets to the people who needs us. We support programs like Backpack Beginnings, which helps students in school, but not only just the students, but their entire families. We've worked with Second Harvest Food Bank. They have done tremendous work. We're looking at expanding our relationship with Second Harvest Food Bank, where they can help people learn how to cook and work in the food service industry. I know that food insecurity is a very difficult issue. I have sat down with grocers and have asked them to come to our community. One of the premier spots in our community is Bailey Village, which I worked on for about 10 years, and it's finally vertical and out of the ground right across from A&T. And we are having the hardest time finding somebody, a grocer, that will locate there. I've worked with the retailer, with Chancellor Martin, with United House of Prayer. So we have to look at all. Sometimes giving somebody an incentive just doesn't work.
Thank you so much. Research shows that police officers who are engaged in and selected from among the communities in which they reside are more sensitive to the needs of the community. What is your plan to recruit, train, and retain police officers for the Greensboro Police Department? And how will you communicate your plan to the community? Mayor Vaughan.
Thank you. One of the initiatives that I came up with this year was take-home cars. And that is giving officers after 2 years of service a vehicle that they can park in their driveway. We are trying to make sure that those vehicles will be located within Guilford County, but it is important that people in the community see our police officers out and have relationships with them. On Wednesday nights, I walk with the Mothers Standing Against Gun Violence, and we go out to neighborhoods who have been impacted. We walk with mothers and fathers who have lost their children to gun homicides. We walk with the Greensboro Police Department, and the Sheriff's Department has started coming out with us. I have reached out to the refugee and immigrant community. We want people to be spoken to in their native language. And we know that Greensboro is an extremely diverse city. We have over 122 languages spoken in our public school system. So I've reached out to immigrant and refugee communities to see if it would be possible to get somebody to work in the Greensboro Police Department. I brought that up to the chief. It is something that we are looking at so that people will see officers on the police force that look and speak just like they do. I think it is important, these outreach programs. We are looking at paying police officers more so that they can live within the city of Greensboro. So those cars can be parked in parking lots, in driveways, in communities. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take us being a community. We're not going to police our way out of issues. We are going to have to collaborate out of issues with local religious establishments, the school system, nonprofits, and the city of Greensboro.
Thank you. Councilman Outling?
Yes. It is an exceptionally difficult job to be a police officer in our community. We have over 100 vacancies in the Greensboro Police Department. That has real consequences in terms of the ability of officers to be where they're needed, when they're needed. And what we all experience in Greensboro are response times that lag behind our peer communities and violent crime in the city of Greensboro that is really among the top in the region, and in fact, the top in the country, with even this year us still being at record 5-year numbers. What we can do to help attract, retain officers and make our community safe is actually provide what successful communities provide every day. That's high standards for police conduct. That's high levels of accountability, but also high levels of support, both during an election year and outside of an election year. That includes doing things like I helped lead the council in 2 springs ago in terms of increasing police pay to help attract and retain officers. It also includes what I did in a non-election year, which was vote for the city to accept a grant from the federal government for desperately needed police equipment. Rather than looking to make a political statement and turning down a grant that our community has traditionally accepted and has accepted since that particular time. Other things that we can do to help attract and retain officers are understand that we need to be honest with officers as well as honest with the community about what's necessary to make our community safe. That includes that we're going to be progressive and visionary on matters of police reform. We're going to do things like, in fact, adopt 8 Can't Wait like every other major city in North Carolina, taking simple steps to reduce the likelihood of police violence while providing support to our officers. That's what we can do, and that's what we will do.
Thank you. According to the Greensboro Crime Report, week ending June 5th, 2022, the chance of becoming a victim of violent or property crime in Greensboro is 1 in 22. What is your plan to reduce this statistic? Councilman Outling?
Yes. And that grim statistic is consistent with the past many years in Greensboro. And we need change to, in fact, do better. And we also need effective leadership to make that a reality. With regard to public safety, what we must do is prevention and intervention. That's take steps to actually tackle the root causes of crime, like a lack of affordable housing, a lack of jobs, and a lack of transportation. 3 things that we've discussed a little bit earlier this evening. That also includes, however, intervention, because we have a really epidemic state with violent crime in our community. That means taking steps to make sure that our Greensboro Police Department has the resources that they need to address their aspect of public safety. That is, that they actually have pay such that they desire to work here rather than other local communities like High Point, where they can receive comparable, if not better pay with less dangerous conditions and lesser degrees of accountability and lower standards. It also includes being really transparent and honest as a city council and as a mayor with regard to where our positions are on the difficult topics of the day. Explaining what it is that we see in police interactions rather than seeking to escape accountability and questions about where we stand on those important questions. We can do all of those things, but it takes a change from the status quo, both in terms of style as well as prioritization, prevention and intervention, supporting our police department when they deserve our support, and also holding all city employees, including officers, accountable when they fail to meet our standards.
Thank you. Mayor Vaughan?
Elma, would you restate the question again?
According to the Greensboro Crime Report, week ending June 5th, 2022, the chance of becoming a victim of violent or property crime in Greensboro is 1 in 22. What is your plan to reduce this statistic?
So in this next budget, you're going to see a lot of things that we are taking action on. And one is better pay. We know that we need to retain officers. We see officers leaving and going to other cities because they have things like take-home cars and tuition reimbursement, credits for having a second language. And those are things that I have worked with council to make sure are included, that our officers will be paid more. We want good officers. I work with our officers on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I was endorsed by the Greensboro Police Officers Association because I know what it is they need, because I speak with them. I don't assume certain things. You know, I've done a number of ride-alongs in the community with our police departments, and spending the evening out going into these areas where you're more likely to be a 1 in 22, to talk to the neighbors, to see what it is that they would like to see, what makes them actually be safer. Worked on a number of initiatives with the police chief that are still pending. One of them was a civilian traffic enforcement bill that is working fine in Wilmington and Fayetteville. But after a ride along that I had, this idea came up and I brought it to the state legislature. It's currently stuck in the Senate Rules Committee, but I look at doing things different and out of the box. And one thing, people always know where I stand. I walk into rooms that are uncomfortable, but I make sure that I am there. I stated earlier that I am out in the community. I walk with Mothers Standing Against Gun Violence. A few years ago, we had a town hall meeting at Windsor Recreation Center to get input from our community on what it was that they wanted to see, what it was that they were feeling. And interestingly enough, one person didn't say any, one council member didn't say anything that entire meeting.
Time is
And
up.
it wasn't me.
Thank you. We're going to check in with our Q&A. Donna, how does our Q&A look before our last question?
We do have one question that's rather unique, so I'm going to read it. What is one solid solution to one great problem facing Greensboro that you would like to put forward that has not been addressed yet? So a kind of open-ended question, a problem facing Greensboro, and what you would like to say about it, addressing that problem.
You have 1 minute. Councilman Outling.
Yeah, one problem in Greensboro is a lack of affordable housing, as well as properties being in dangerous and blighted conditions. I formerly chaired the Minimum Housing Standards Commission. It's really how I first came to serve our community, and it's really heartbreaking to see the conditions that many of our neighbors live in. One solid solution that we can do to really change that reality is for the city to use an ordinance that I helped create years ago that allows the city to make repairs directly to properties that are in dangerous and blighted condition, such that a property owner, if they're unable to pay for those repairs, they can work out a payment plan with the city of Greensboro. And if the property is ever sold, the city gets its money back in connection with that sale. And the same with regard to those property owners who may be unwilling to improve those properties. Immediately providing more and safe, affordable housing in our community. This is something that as mayor can be made a priority, working with the city council, seeking actual specific direction.
Time is up. Okay.
Thank you. I would agree that safe, affordable housing is probably our biggest issue, followed closely by crime. But we, as I said earlier, everybody deserves to live in a place that is safe. I don't want anybody living in an apartment, a home that I wouldn't live in or that I would not put my children in. That's why it is so important that we pass this 10-year housing plan. It gives us tools that we didn't have before, because yes, they do cost money and we do not have them in the current budget. In addition to low-end housing, we also need to look at density of housing. I will see that we look at proposing the ordinance that would allow duplexes and triplexes in single-family zoning, which would allow density. It would bring our housing prices down. And it is something that has been proven in other cities to be very successful in lowering rates
Time is up.
and increasing density. Thank you.
Last question. The final draft of the City of Greensboro's strategic plan, February 2022, states a goal of 100% renewable energy by 2040. How will you implement the proposed plan to decrease the use of gasoline by the police department, which accounts for 49% of our city government's gasoline usage? Mayor Vaughan.
Thank you. We passed a resolution maybe last year or the year before that we would reduce our footprint and be more sustainable, I believe, by the year 2040. I know that when I looked at that resolution, I wanted it to be something that it was enforceable and that we weren't just doing platitudes and things that we couldn't do. And actually, we have made significant progress. One of the things was that we wanted to be a LEED certified city, a gold LEED certified city, which shows that we look at things like gasoline consumption, which now is more than a sustainable issue. It is also an economic development issue. When we put our first application in, we ended up with a silver LEED award. That's not a North Carolina award or US award. That is actually a global award. It shows that we are already doing measurable things to bring our carbon footprint down. There have been great strides in electric vehicles, so much that we now have a battery manufacturing plant on the Greensboro Randolph megasite. We need to look at what we can do with battery operated cars. We already have charging stations in the police parking lot. I think we can look at buying more electric vehicles. I'm not sure how they are when it comes to higher speeds and things like that, but we also have, CSIs and others. So I certainly support us spending more money to get something that is more sustainable. We also recently hired a sustainability officer, which is part of that resolution that we passed. It is a resolution that I believed in. So we are going to have a management level person looking at all of the decisions that we make and the impact they have on our carbon footprint and sustainability.
Thank you. Councilman Outling.
Yeah, on this topic, like others, we need more substance and less symbolism. Well, I'm proud to have led the city council as its representative in connection with the comprehensive plan and community to create the really audacious goal of Greensboro being the greenest city in the South. That's a goal. That doesn't go to the work necessary to make that a reality. And it's uniquely the power of the mayor to convene the council and actually get action on all of these particular goals, including in terms of making our community more green and more sustainable. And while I was proud to vote in favor of the resolution to which previous reference has been made, resolutions by their very nature are not action items. They do not have the force of an ordinance. They do not provide direction. And so it's aspirational, which is great, but the city council convened by the mayor needs to meet regularly on this topic, provide direction specific to city staff, and also have a measure of accountability and transparency on this particular topic. This is something that applies whether it's on this topic, whether it's on public safety, where in 2020 we had the second consecutive year of a record number of homicides, but the mayor only convened the council twice through work sessions to work on violent crime. We need to have a really effective quarterback that not only says the wonderful things, but actually leads the council in doing the wonderful things. The fact that we received lead certification isn't a product of actual new work done by the council. That's taking a measure of where we were at the moment. The important thing is, where are we going now? And what are we doing as a city, and more specifically a city council, to make sure that we accomplish the goals of being more sustainable, the goals of accomplishing the audaciousness of being the greenest city in the South.
Time up. Thank you. We are now at our closing statements. I will start with Councilman Outling first.
Again, thank you all for this absolutely wonderful opportunity. Greensboro is a community of great promise and should be the envy of every city across the state of North Carolina. But we need really effective mayoral leadership to close the gap between our potential and our reality. The role of the mayor is like one of a quarterback. It takes more than just a good quarterback for a team to be successful and reach the end zone. You've got to have wide receivers. You've got to have running backs. You got to have an offensive line. But by the same token, if you don't have a really effective mayor or quarterback, you won't be successful, because it's uniquely the mayor that sets the agenda for the city council and has the ability to influence policy and drive change through the position. Because it's only the mayor that unilaterally, on his or her own, can add things to the city council agenda. It's only the mayor on his or her own that makes sure that when city council members unanimously vote to do things like ensure that there are equitable practices in connection with rezonings, that those things actually make it to the city council agenda and get voted upon, and we see progress intended by council members. I've shared a bold vision with actual plans that everyone can access on our website, voteoutling.com, and I would encourage you to do so. A bold vision about how we can transform our economy through an innovation district, how we can make our community more safe through higher standards, greater accountability, and greater appreciation for our Greensboro Police Department, both on and off an election year. How to have actual principled leadership that doesn't vary with political winds and is more focused on doing what's right, even when it does things like cost politically endorsements from the police association. So thank you for the opportunity.
Mayor Vaughan.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this forum. I think it's been very, very informative. You know, when somebody is running against an incumbent, they have to say how bad things are and how much hasn't gotten done. They certainly can't say that Greensboro is headed in the right direction, that we've had wonderful announcements, that we are putting people to work, that we are taking action on really serious issues. If you did those things, then why could you ask somebody to vote for you? So, you know, a statement has been made that the mayor is in a unique position when it comes to setting an agenda. I want to say that one of the things I think that really sets me apart is that I know how to count to 5. That if there is something that needs to get done on this city council, I make sure that I have 5 votes to bring it forward. I work with council members who have great ideas to get their 5 votes to move it forward. You know, if you look at our charter, if you go to our website, it says the council sets and directs policy regarding the operations of city government. It's not just the mayor. That is one thing that I think really sets me apart, is that I am a collaborator, that I work with people on city council to make these big changes. And I sent out an email that said, I encourage you to reach out to people you know on city council, whether it's your district representative or just somebody you know, and you ask them what it's like to work with me as a mayor. If I am a collaborator or a gatekeeper, I can assure you I'm not. And I'm asking you to do that because I know what their answer will be. Their answer will be that we work together to move this city forward. And I pledge to continue that work. Thank you.
One last thought as we leave on a positive note before we close. In 60 seconds or less, and this can be just a word or a phrase, what have you, what do you admire most about your opponent? Councilman Outling.
It's ironic. We were had an impromptu kind of forum this past Saturday when I was speaking with the community about public safety and the like downtown during Juneteenth. And obviously want to wish everyone a happy Juneteenth. And we were asked this very same question. One of the things that I admire about Mayor Vaughan is she inspires confidence in many members of our community that Greensboro has progressed. That's a laudable thing, inspiring that confidence. Obviously, I think there has to be substance with that symbolism and sense of progress. We actually need to see more jobs in our community. We actually have to see East Greensboro make progress, even beyond a sense that there is activity happening. But it's a laudable thing to inspire confidence.
Time. Mayor
Thank
Vaughan.
you. And Mr. Outling, thank you for your kind words. One thing that I would say about Mr. Outling is that he is the young professional that we are trying to keep and attract to this city. He's got great education. He is a wonderful lawyer. He chose to make his home here. We want other people to make those same choices. And it's wonderful when you can point to somebody and say, look at this person. They've decided to raise their families here. So I like the role model he is. I'm sure that he is a mentor, that he brings that message to other people about what they can do with their careers, what they can do to be successful, and why they should live here in the city of Greensboro. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight. This has been a wonderful forum, and thanks to both of the candidates. And this concludes our candidate forum. The replay will be posted on the League of Women Voters website, lwvpt.org, and LWVPT YouTube channel by June 21st, 2022 by 7 p.m. Again, thank you all for attending the forum. And remember to connect with vote411.org for all even more candidate questions. And please join us on Wednesday of this week, June 22nd at 7 p.m. for the Greensboro City Council Forum. And you know what? I'm not going to leave this without saying, join the League of Women Voters. Everyone out there, we can use your talent. We can use your skill. I say to everyone, good night, and we will see you again on Wednesday.
And vote on July 26th.
And vote on July
Yes,
26th.
this is a group that I'm sure knows that, but please tell your family and your neighbors that the election is July 26th.
Yes, with
Yes,
early
indeed.
voting starting on July 7th.
Yes,
Thank you for that announcement. Great.
thank you.
Good night, all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.